So like people always ask me where the good vintage spots are in LA, and I feel like the truth is that there aren't that many good spots. We're gonna go to Jet Rag. I always find gems there. It's like not a super deep cut. And there's a watch I want to look at. There's a watch store called Wanna Buy a Watch. They just do all vintage watches, and they're kind of like towards Beverly Hills. I'm never over there because why would I do that? I don't hate myself, but today I hate myself. I hate myself like a normal amount, but we're gonna try and go there. So I'm actually gonna call them right now and see if they pick up. We'll see what they have to say. They are appointment only, but they're apparently open on Tuesdays. Hi, I know you guys are appointment only, but I was hoping to come in today if possible. 3 o'clock? Yeah, we could do that. That'd be great. Thank you so much. Looking forward to it. Wow. That worked out. Okay, 3 o'clock, we have an appointment at Wanna Buy a Watch. So maybe we should hop in the car and start heading that way. So the watch that I want to go see, I've been kind of into it for a while. So there's a brand called Tag Heuer, which was originally called Heuer. And they made like a lot of really, really famous racing watches in the 60s and 70s and onward. But in the 90s, they did this really cool thing where they basically reissued the first model that they ever did, the Carrera, or one of the first famous models they did, the Carrera, for like the 30th anniversary, I think it was at the time. And if you're into watches, the weird thing about watch companies is that a lot of the historical ones have these like really amazing pieces, but they never reproduce them exactly as they were. I feel like there's this pressure to innovate, and it makes sense. Like I think you want things to change, you want a reason to buy the new thing, I get it. But so many of these pieces are so iconic and so beautiful, and they just don't remake them. The really big issue that I have with a lot of watches is that they're so big. This is a Tudor Black Bay 58. It's a reproduction, so like not like a super one-to-one reproduction, but like a pretty good reproduction of the Submariner that Tudor and also Rolex made in 1958. It's the like watch that James Bond wears in some of the Sean Connery early James Bond movies and the George Lazenby James Bond movie. So with watches, it's like you have the like dimension of the dial of the watch, but then you also have like how high it kind of sticks up off your wrist. There are all these things about it that like kind of determine whether or not it's a good fit. And a lot of older watches were actually quite small, yeah. Because like if you think about the history of watches, for ages, people had pocket watches. And then in World War I, you start to see wristwatches mainly because people needed to see the time when they were like in war and they couldn't be like reaching into their pockets and grabbing a watch. So then, right, like if you're a watchmaker and you're innovating, the innovation is like, how small can I get this? How convenient can I make this? So then for a long time, that was the spirit of a watch, is like how small, how like functional can it be? But then at a certain point, like especially with luxury pieces, it became like how big, how flashy can it be?
Right.
And that's because a lot of like the famous watches that people love are based on like diving watches or like flight watches, which kind of had to be bigger. Like if you're diving underwater, you need to be able to see like what time it is, how much oxygen you have left in your tank. Or if you're pre-computers, people would fly and have like a big watch they can do calculations on. And then so this watch, the Carrera from 1960, the reproduction of the watch from 1964 was like that, but for racing. So you could like time your laps, and you had a sense of how fast you were going or how good of a time you were getting. So that's what I wanted to see today. Yeah, and I think it's uncommon for a watch to be as small as this one is, and also like so authentically styled. But yeah, so I'm just curious to see how I like it, because you can look at a picture of something, and this is like, I think, super true of fashion and watches. Like the picture, you might think, oh, I'm gonna love this thing, but then when you try it on, it could change. So yeah, never buy a watch unseen, like just based on the internet, because you want to try it on and see. It has to sing to you, I think. That's what I'd say. It's like, because the right watch or the right piece of clothing, when you try it on, you'll have an experience. And if there's any uncertainty, give it 24 hours, give it 48 hours to think on. You could put it on hold sometimes if you really are on the fence, but you'll know if it's the one you were supposed to get.
Right away, I was really impressed with this watch.
In pictures online, it looks a little busy. It looks a little hard to read with all those subdials on it. But in person, it's not just flat black. It has a lot more nuance. The strap was kind of beat up. It's original on this watch, but it's exactly the kind of strap you want with a racing watch. It's perforated, has holes in it, which I guess cooled off racers' wrists. This wasn't the right outfit for it. It just had a lot of really interesting qualities to it that I liked as the chronograph feature. I'll start the timer there. It was a great experience. I just didn't want to film anyone in there and bother them.
That was like far and away one of my favorite like watch interactions. Sometimes when you're in a situation like that, it feels like they either like assume you know nothing. She played it very well, and I really liked talking to her, and that watch was really special. But we're headed back. We're gonna go get something to eat. My trusty cameraman is intermittent fasting, and now he can eat. Then we're gonna do a little vintage clothes shopping. That is gonna be more of my price range. So going to Jet Rag. I really, really like Jet Rag because I've taken friends here before, and for not a lot of money, you can easily get a few solid outfits. And like, you know, will I find anything truly crazy? Probably not. But if you're trying to like bulk get some good new shirts or maybe some good new jeans, it's probably your best bet. Usually it's not a great idea to go into any kind of vintage shopping with too much of an idea of what you want. Like you should kind of let the fates decide. But in terms of things I do need, I always need new shirts. I could always do with the new trousers, I guess, like not jeans, not work pants kind of trousers. But what I really need is like light outerwear, just kind of cool things to wear to the bar or whatever. That aren't blazers, that aren't denim jackets. It's like funky kind of outerwear pieces that aren't too, you know, I'll know when I see it. We already have stuff in our wardrobes that we don't wear enough. And so ideally I'll find things today or whenever you go vintage shopping that like accentuate the weird corners of your closet that you don't work with enough. So it's like, yeah, if I find another white Western shirt or whatever, like great, that'll go with all my blue jeans I already wear. But if I find something that's maybe a different color or pattern or fit, that could really kick shit up a notch. I kind of like a vintage Pierre Cardin. It's very like neutral. I'll put this in the maybe pile. They do have a lot of good made in USA Wranglers here usually. The way you can tell a pair of Wranglers is made in USA is you check the tag. It's usually on the inside of the flyer. There it is. So this is made in Mexico, US fabric, so not sure made in USA. Most brands stopped manufacturing in the USA around the early 2000s. It differs for all the brands, but you know, like for Wrangler and Levi's was both around 2003-ish, I want to say. And then they've, you know, manufactured in various other places since then. So the made in USA stuff is usually better, and also is like a sign that something is truly vintage. So here's a pair of 550s. Oh yeah, here we have a made in USA tag. It's a waist 36 tag, but it's marked as 34, probably because it's shrunk down over the years. Jeans and cotton fabrics tend to shrink a lot as they get older, and then it also depends on the specific kind of denim. It gets very nerdy at a certain point, and if you want to learn more about it, you can. If you don't want to, you'll probably be fine. In terms of like brands to look for, when it comes to flannels, Five Brother is a good one to look for. That is made in USA on the tag. L Bean is also one, but only one made in USA. I wouldn't necessarily do anything from after they stopped manufacturing in the USA. Yeah, just a lot of heritage brands. They made that decision to fire all their US-based employees to, you know, increase their margins and manufacture overseas. And also just because something is manufactured overseas doesn't mean it's worse. A lot of countries, you know, where manufacturing happens, have worked a lot harder than the US to, you know, like make advances in their technology of spinning and weaving and sewing and all this stuff. So they're actually, sometimes they have better technology than we've ever had access to here, but sometimes there are like labor violations, obviously, that can happen. So Towncraft was an old J.C. Penney label, and that's a good one to always look for, Towncraft. There's also Fashion Collection, that's an old Sears thing. I'm not seeing anything I want deeply, which is depressing. Oh, actually, so this is Gant. Gant is a brand that's now run by Swedes. My friend Christopher Baston is in charge of things over there. And they manufactured shirts for college stores. Like colleges used to have their own stores. And so this would have been for the Yale Co-op. Oh no. Okay, actually, so all the branding looks great. It looks solid, looks real. And then you find this little tag in here. Now it says up there, it says made in India. I was nearly duped there. Well, here we go. Here's another Gant, Fox Hunt Plaids. This is made in Hong Kong. So this is older than that one. It says British colony of Hong Kong, so that would make me feel like this is fairly old. It's honestly kind of nice. It's my size, looks like. So yeah, this is perfect. It's a 44, which is my size. It's Field & Stream, which is a great old outdoors brand. Like think LL Bean or any of those guys. It's so sick. Isn't it? It was only $55, which is reasonable. This is a whole lot of coat. Look at the tag. That's a beautiful tag. So this is like probably whatever store that they sold it to, and it's perfect. Just got that little thing there for hanging it up.
How do you feel about your haul?
When I'm there and I'm shopping for other people, I can find a lot of stuff because it's like a lot of basics over here. But when it's just me, I have so many things I already have, so I don't really need anything. But looking back, I think the best thing I ever found there was I found a Pendleton, like camel, I mean the color camel, not the material, overcoat that I've worn pretty much every time I've traveled in the winter, like on the East Coast. And I got it there for $200, which is not nothing. But like any coat that like hefty and warm in modern day would be like over $1,000, you know? And so this big funny coat I got is way more like packable and convenient than that because it's like corduroy and it's just smaller. But it's $55. So yeah, we got one thing, one jacket. I'm happy with it. I'm stoked. It was a good price, $55. And that's like a whole lot of jacket. Like that should be hundreds of dollars worth of jacket, but it's just not a brand that no one cares about Field & Stream that much. I mean, I feel like that's the thing about vintage shopping. It's just always an exercise in staying like mentally positive. Even though I was saying literally don't get your expectations up, don't think too much about trying to find this or that or whatever. You're naturally gonna have expectations, especially because we're filming it. I was like, oh, I hope we find something bananas, but that's good. We saw a really sick watch. I don't know how I feel about it ultimately. I think it's nice, but it's also a lot of money, and I don't know if that's something I want to spring for necessarily. And that jacket is sick, and I won't be able to wear it for months, but I'll have it in my already packed closet. And yeah, I mean, I think because I've actually had this question a lot, like, how long did it take me to get all my vintage that I have? And before I made content and received clothing all the time, it took me a long ass time to get clothes because that's how it goes. It's like you go to a vintage store, you spend an hour there, you find only one thing you want, and then maybe you buy it, maybe you don't. But I think our brains are a little fried by like all the hauls and all the stuff that people get. And I'd like to remind the viewers that so much of the stuff I get is free. Like so much of the clothing that I get is free. Normal people should not have that much stuff. And like, you look at me as like a mannequin in a shop window. Like some of the things are good, some of the things are bad to you. Hopefully I like most of it. And then only pick up the stuff that like you want and is feasible for you. Don't go into debt buying some bullshit because like an influencer has it, you know? I think people have a reaction to a lot of the things that, you know, a lot of like the trending pieces and a lot of clothes are just really expensive. But if you look at, you know, I just spent $50 today on that jacket, but if I had just put that aside, you know, maybe in a week or 2 weeks, I would be like, oh, I'll get a $200 jacket that I'd like more. The way I felt about jeans in general in college, I was so obsessed. That's how I'm starting to feel about watches. Like I'm just so interested in the way that they can enhance an outfit. And like that black watch, I feel like, yeah, with like kind of like dark, like charcoal slacks and like loafers and a black t-shirt, like it's very like, yeah, it's Italian, like fucking smoking a cigarette, racing a fucking Ferrari shit, you know, having a little espresso with my little watch. It's, yeah, if I was traveling in Europe, that's the watch I'd want. It's also like, it's just not flashy. Like nobody's gonna care what that is. And it's like what we're talking about with vintage. Like, what are you looking for? It's like that specific watch, Heuer, which is a brand that is super historically important, Tag Heuer, they've for real fallen off. for a while. They're getting it back together a little bit, but they've fallen off big time. And so yeah, that's a watch that not only I want, but only I'm obsessing about this watch on the internet right now. I think most people are like, okay, whatever. And that's something that's important. Like, to find those things, it's like, it's a weird thing that sticks in your brain. I'm like, why can't I stop thinking about this weird little thing? That's a cool thing about all this stuff. It's like, it's infinite. There's so much stuff. There's so many kinds of accessories and different cuts of denim. It's like, you could go literally forever and never really run into anybody else necessarily, unless you're putting all your secrets on the internet, which sometimes can make people dress like you in some cases. But I did try on the two-tone GMT. It was that Rolex with the gold on it. That was just cool. I mean, it's just cool to try stuff on, and you need an accessible environment to learn about that stuff and to try it on. And that stuff is so expensive, and I felt really welcomed in there. Like, I was being snobby about having to make an appointment, when we called earlier in the day, but I felt really welcomed. I did not feel cool guyed, which I have felt at a lot of other watch places. Like, until you like take out your money, basically, they're like, oh, fuck this guy.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, we have some things in the back for you. And I mean, it's also about building a relationship and all that stuff. And I understand that there's a lot of ways this works. And I'm lucky to have met a lot of grounded people in the watch world as well. But that was just so nice and just so like classy. And I felt it seemed like a very reliable place to do your shopping. We just drove past my ex's street. Should I pull over and light myself on fire?